Hi, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Susan Lynn. I'm a psychic and a medium. Thanks so much for joining me today. Today is going to be part one of my video where I take your questions and I ask my spirit guides. Now, I've got a cadre of spirit guides here that are specifically here to help me answer political questions. I do channel these videos, so I am about 40% of Susan, the sentient human being of Susan is that part of that. And the 60% is the spirit guides. Okay. So it's sort of a light channel where I blend the energies together. You will see this happen in real time as we answer your questions. Now, before I dive into your questions, and again, thank you so much for sending them. And you can send me questions when I usually put a call for questions, political questions, about once a week or maybe a week and a half. And if you subscribe, you will likely see that post in your video feed. That's like all your videos as you're looking at YouTube. Sometimes you see a post in there. That's what we use to communicate to you guys when we don't want to do a video, right? We just need to communicate something to you. It's quickly done with a post. Now, if you're not seeing that, it could be because you're not subscribed, or it could be that you're a lurker, which is perfectly fine, honestly, but YouTube considers people that don't interact with the video to not be very interested, and their most important thing is to get interaction. So if you're not very interactive, if you don't leave a question or a comment or like the video or something like that, sometimes they don't show you the video very much. So if that's the case, you can go directly to my community channel by clicking on the icon that you see here. And then once you're on the main page, you'll see community tab. Click that. You'll see a place to put your questions for part two, because there will be a part two. I can already guarantee you. Let's get started with your questions. Actually, I'm sorry, spirit guides. Before I get started with the questions, they wanted me to briefly talk about North Korea. North Korea is going to be in the news. There's energy around North Korea. I know that they've been shooting off missiles or whatever it is that they do over there when they feel threatened. But I do think this could have something to do with the soldier that ran across the border. And I do feel like whether it's announced in the next week, energy suggests that Biden is going to pull some kind of Hail Mary. He's going to potentially, there's private secret talks right now between North Korea and an intermediary to the United States. I know the media is saying nothing's happening, but the media don't know everything, right? The psychics know a little bit more. So I just think it's interesting because the energy is really big right now. So it could fail, but it's a big attempt. The energy suggests this is a big attempt by Biden to get this young man back on U.S. soil. So I don't think anybody asked that. The guide specifically wanted me to mention it. I don't know why. So let's get started. Mimi to Rory, interesting name. I like it. Your question is, do the guides feel like the non-MAGA GOP members will step aside and let justice prevail once the poop starts hitting the fans? So, your question is, if there are any normal non-MAGA Republicans in the Republican Party, will they step aside and allow justice to do its thing? The answer is yes. They don't really have a choice. There's nothing that anybody's going to do, even the MAGAs, because the way I see this going down is that, let's say 2 or 3 MAGAs get a target letter or even an indictment. That's just the tip of the iceberg, right? So we know icebergs, there's a lot that happens under the water that you can't see. There's going to be a lot more indictments. So in this case, with your question, not only will the non-MAGA GOP people not get in the way, but the MAGA people will find themselves that have not been indicted, that their good friend has been indicted, they will find themselves like the cat's got their tongue, is what the guides would say. Maybe they're going to be a little quiet. Maybe they're going to be a little shocked. Now, so that you can also say that means that there's not going to be a lot of people coming to their rescue, right? It's going to be very interesting, right? What happens? But your question specifically about the non-MAGA, no, they're not. They're going to be like, hey, we didn't commit any crimes. The energy shows these people kind of, have you ever been in a crowd and somebody's running and they're going to run past you, but you feel the need to kind of step back and give them some room? That's what I see these non-MAGA people doing, like, whoa, okay, and here goes justice. Maybe, Jack Smith trucking by, running by at a full stride. So no, they're going to get out of the way. And the MAGAs that will eventually be indicted, that are not indicted in the very first fling of arrows, are going to be surprised. They're going to be taken aback. I mean, I do think they're going to go to social media. I do think they're going to go on Fox News, but there's going to be several that are quiet. Watch the ones that don't have the hue and cry. Watch the ones that get really quiet, because they're next. Okay, thank you for your question. That was a great question. All right, let's move on to Patty B 218. What in the world is going to happen with the Department of Education in Florida? She wants to know. Who will challenge the slavery gave slaves skills BS? Will it be overturned? Yeah, I've been seeing DeSantis. Remember, there's so many analogies they had for DeSantis. Remember that? They're showing me some analogies I had months and months ago. I don't know if you guys remember that. Remember when he was in the swamp? DeSantis was in the swamp and he couldn't move his arms. His arms were pinned to his sides. Now, maybe out of fear because of an alligator, but maybe also because he was tied up, right? So there's this energy of him being tied up, unable to move, not even able to talk. It also is this sense of fear, of literally holding your breath, least the alligators, sense that there's a living morsel of human in the swamp that would be a nice little snack, right? So he's trying to like be wooden, be very still, like maybe nobody will notice me. It doesn't work. I can tell you that right now. So I do see DeSantis, his legs, also the other analogy metaphor they used most recently is he's walking along and somebody just takes his legs out from under him. He never sees it coming. He falls flat on his face. That's coming pretty soon. Now, your question is about the Department of Education, but truly DeSantis is the one that's issuing the edicts, is he not? Right? He seems to be the king of Florida, passing out edicts, and when people don't appease him, he goes after them. Right? So the Department of Education, we need to get rid of DeSantis, or we need to make DeSantis tied up in the swamp. We need to either somehow deactivate him. And then what happens is, and I do see that happening, it's just a matter of when, but I do see the Department of Education. So what happens is, it's really like, this is the analogy. Now, I don't know. I'm not talking about New Orleans or Louisiana here, but I will say that the analogy they want to use now is that Floridians, it's almost like they're waking up after a really big bender. You know what I mean? And they're like rubbing their eyes and they get a pounding headache, one of those pounding headaches. And they're like, and cotton mouth, and they're like, oh, I feel terrible. But they're coming to their senses. And while they're trying to, take some aspirin and, I don't know why, but for some reason they're drinking tomato juice. I hope it's not a Bloody Mary, hair of the dog, but you never know. They realize this place is effed up. Like, this is a wreck. Like our state is a laughing stock and a wreck. Our retirement, the teacher's retirement is invested in Russia. Our governor is a crook, allegedly. They're going to toss everybody out. Last couple of times I've been seeing Charlie Crist come back in and get another chance at running the state. I'm not saying he's the best option. I'm not saying that. I'm just telling you what I'm getting. He seems like the easiest option. Like if there had to be a runoff for governor, if DeSantis had to step down early and there was a runoff, I feel like Crist would win it a runoff. I don't think he would win a general election, but I think he might win. Like, we're in trouble. We desperately need to get this back on track. Let's get somebody in there that's done it before. We don't care. Just do it, get it done. So now when I see this new energy coming in, I see the Department of Education getting a complete overhaul. I see what is that? The syllabus, but not the syllabus, the curriculum of the schools being switched back. I see libraries being funded, and I feel like books are back on shelves. I feel like college students are breathing a sigh of relief. I feel like college professors are breathing a sigh of relief. I feel like teachers are now, when I get to the teachers, to the public school teachers, the problem with teachers and nurses is that there may not be any going back. They've been abused too much. And I just don't know how we're going to ever get back on track in a short period of time. Okay. I just don't see it. I just don't see snapping of the fingers. I think that and I've seen this before. I think that Biden's administration is going to get involved and bring in like Teach for America on steroids. Like, I just think we're going to have to replace teachers. So that's still a problem in Florida. But yes, I do see the curriculum being fixed. I think that all of this can kind of happen pretty quickly, except for the teachers. That's where the energy just kind of like skids to a stop. Everything else feels like it can be fixed very quickly. Like within a matter of months, all of this can be switched back to normal land, right? And I do feel, let me ask, is Crist the likely governor? There is somebody else who's going to throw their hat in the ring. I'm not sure what his nationality or his race is. He doesn't look white, but I don't know what that is. I don't know. I'm not getting anything other than maybe a non-white guy might be putting his hat in the ring. It's a little bit, I don't know about the support for that guy, but does this happen in 23 or 24? I really feel like it's going to happen in 24, but I do think something is going to be set in motion. They're saying irreparable, meaning you cannot repair this. DeSantis cannot overcome this. He cannot repair this. It's irreparable. It starts this year in 23, but the axe sort of falls either in December of this year or January into early spring of next year. He has to step down. Now, I often tell you guys, we have to find laws that people have broken, right? We already know that norms and traditions and whatever the custom is, none of that works anymore. Nobody cares, or at least the Republicans don't care about those things. So for instance, if DeSantis did get indicted, he's not going to step down. They don't step down for things like indictments, right? That's your word against my word. I'm innocent. And truly, in the United States of America, you are innocent until proven guilty, right? So in that way, he's right. The guy deserves his day in court. So that's why I think if something befalls him this fall, he could get his day in court probably in early spring. The problem is that, man, that's when everybody's getting their day in court, right? If you remember, if you've watched me, the timeline suggests that indictments start flying this fall. And already they've flown for Trump, but I'm talking about for Congress people and senators and other ne'er-do-wells. This starts flying this fall. Court dates get started in the spring through early summer. So it looks like DeSantis is going to be vying for his own courtroom amongst some of these other, I don't even know. Sometimes they add two words together when they, this is not a word, you guys. Well, maybe it is skullduggery. Look, they're trying to use some pirate terms because we're talking about Florida. Come on now. I don't know, you guys. I don't even know if that's a word, but that's what they want to say. It could be that they were giving me two different words and this is a combination of both of them, which happens on occasion. Okay, it's going to get fixed, Patty. Don't worry. We are going to overturn it and it's going to get fixed. Yes, because the energy says so. That's why. Okay, so Gail Heinrich says the state of Alabama has voted on a new redistricting map defying the Supreme Court ruling that requires 2 congressional districts where Black voters make up the majority. What is going to happen? Will they get away with defying the Supreme Court? Yeah, this is the energy we're sitting in right now, right? Which is this sort of make me, right? And the guides would give you 2, just because Susan knows these court cases or these situations. So they're going to use 2 situations that she knows to explain why this is going to happen. It is going to happen, and this is why it's going to happen. Because the Supreme Court, because the DOJ is going to make them. Now, let me give you 2 situations where states said, gave the middle finger to the DOJ or the federal government of the United States. One is in Juneteenth. If you're not familiar with that, well, after the Civil War, when we had the end of slavery, so to speak, well, the South, especially this town in Galveston, Texas, well, they never told the slaves. They just never told them. Now, how else are they going to learn? They're kind of isolated in this southern part of Texas, and many southern towns are isolated, and they're slaves. Who's going to walk up and tell them? So I think it was 3 years after the Civil War, troops literally came to town and freed them. That is why we celebrate Juneteenth, June 19th in the South. And specifically the birthplace of this was in Galveston, Texas. So this is an important thing. It shows you that, yes, the states defy the federal government, but it also shows you that the government can send the troops, can send some sort of law to get these lawless states to do the right thing. And another thing that's very interesting, also centered around Galveston, because I lived there for many years, is that Galveston was a big gambling. It's an island, and it was the Wall Street of the West, right? It had Frank Sinatra would come there, and all these famous people would come to Galveston and play. Well, Galveston was a mob town, and there was gambling. Now, when the Texas decided no more gambling, we're against gambling, end of gambling. Well, Galveston just kept on gambling, and then they created different ways to hide their gambling, right? They had little boys that would stay at the front and run faster than the law could get there and dump the gambling machines into the water, right? Literally just push them into the water, because that was better than being caught, right? So they had all these elaborate ways to outrun the law. Well, so this is a rogue city in this case. This city's like, no, we're not going to follow the state laws. Well, what ended up happening is Texas sent the Texas Rangers to Galveston and shut it all down. So those are 2 examples. There are many examples, I'm sure, where states went rogue and either the federal government or the state law came down, straightened them out, and put them back on their lawful path. This is what's going to happen with Alabama. You're not going to turn your nose up at the Supreme Court. Biden will not have that. You can best believe that right now, Biden is trying to do the carrot and the stick thing. He's trying to offer them a carrot. He's trying to offer them a way to save face. If that doesn't work, he's going to go down there with a stick and wallop them in their head. So don't worry, Alabama will soon, one way or another, come about their senses and do what's right, because this is not going to stand. It's just simply not going to stand. All right. So enough of the history lessons. We're going to move on. KES 4795 says, can we talk about the movement across the globe against human rights in countries like Italy, Spain, Israel, the United States? How far will it go? And is there any greater good, for instance, bringing Palestinian and Israelis together? Yes, this is such a good question, because you guys, we are going into this season of this. This is the season. I would say the guides are saying it was kind of kicked off by Iranians with the women protesting, and certainly with men standing next to the women and saying, we support these women, right? It maybe didn't go as well as those people hoped it would, but what it did was it kicked off another wave. These things are sort of coming in waves. You know, we had the Arab Spring, that was a wave, right? We have this a lot of protest in France right now. We have a lot of protest in Iran. Well, all the places you mentioned, Israel, Spain, and many other places. I see this picking up. I see communities, I see people getting in the streets. There's really a sense of the people have had enough. They've had enough of this top-heavy government, of this government of not caring about the people. And you're going to see even more of this, to be honest with you. It is going to be fruitful in the sense that it's going to pay off. Let's put it that way. These things are going to pay off because the people are now to a point where they're not going to take no for an answer. They're not going to go back into your homes, go back into your flats, go back to your job. They're not going to take that for an answer. They truly are not. They're ready to sacrifice whatever they need to sacrifice to get this message across. Because for real, there's a sense that they're doing it for their kids. They're doing it for the generation below them. They are ready to sacrifice themselves, their jobs, their livelihood, even their lives, because change is needed. This is not acceptable. They don't want their kids to grow up in this kind of very limited, almost kleptocratic, autocratic, egalitarian, whatever you want to call it, authoritarian, whatever. Pick one, type of government. They want more representation of them, of their needs, of their wishes. So this is just getting started. It's really going to pick up speed here in the United States. I think we're going to have a lot of people in the streets. In our case, it's probably going to be politically oriented, and I think it's going to be more of the right wingers in the streets, because we're going to begin to hold these people accountable, like Alabama, like some of these Congress people, some of these senators that get indicted, maybe get convicted. Their fans are going to get in the streets. And so we're going to have to kind of deal with that. So it's people feeling that they've been abused or they haven't been listened to. So you can understand the energy doesn't really care if it's on the right side or the left side. It's people being active, people saying, no, I'm not going to put up with this, right? So if you have that kind of energy, you're going to experience that pretty much across the world, I feel like. I don't think there's going to be very many countries that are going to be spared these types of protests and also strikes, lots and lots of labor strikes. But it is going to pay off, okay? Majority, 95% of the time, It's going to be positive, and it's going to have a positive effect. But you have to understand that these governments, these I don't know what institutions, they're entrenched. It's sort of like if you had really hard soil and you're trying to dig in really hard soil and you're not getting anywhere. Your shovel's just bouncing off. Okay. It's going to take a while. It's going to take a while to soften those institutions to be able to get in there and make some inroads. Okay. So it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to be something that's coming in waves, but it is coming, and it is going to be helpful. And it's not going to stop until these leaders change their stance to be more in tune and synchronicity with their people, with their citizens. Okay. The next thank you for your question. I appreciate it. Woodlawn 22 says, okay, your question is kind of long, and I'm going to read the part of it that is the question part. What if a certain group of people in this country who do not have experience dealing with discernment, don't have experience dealing with, let's just call it energetic discernment. What if they have been psychically targeted with dark energy to encourage hateful, chaotic, destructive behavior? Right. And Woodlawn 22 says, I'm old enough to remember the Cold War days and tales of psychic control experiments with the Soviets being really good at it. I can imagine the retreats and meetings and rallies the GOP go to being helpful to bring them together as group targets. Do you see this as a possibility? Yes, I see this as a possibility. You guys, we are living in a psychological operation, or a psyop. All the stuff you guys see on social media is psychological operations. Now, that would be like CIA type stuff, right? Or MI6, or the whatever the Russian version is, right? Every country has a group of people that kind of specializes in this stuff. Your question goes a step beyond that and says, what if there's dark energy? Is there a dark energy also being attached to these psychological operations or these propaganda operations, right? Yes, absolutely. I do believe that, especially because countries like Russia and a lot of that that area of the Baltic states or Russia area, they believe in psychic things. Their culture believes in this. They're open to it. They adopt it. Also, the Israelis use this quite a lot as well. So you better believe, yes, they can attach dark energy to a message. If that's what you're asking me, I've done videos, right, where you go and you buy something at a antique store and you get home and you find out there's a dark energy attached to it. Well, if they can attach a dark energy to an inanimate object, you better believe that they can attach dark energy to a message, to a person who's delivering the message, to give it the energy, to make the energy even more mesmerizing. So yes, that is absolutely a possibility. And I do think that it is happening, honestly. Now, and how do you break out of that is, so I'm not saying that there's a legion of dark entities attacking each person. I'm saying the energy is wound into the vocalization of the message, or into the visualization, the logo, or there's energy embedded in that. So when you imbibe that energy, you can come away with that energy affecting you, affecting your thoughts, affecting your common sense, whatever you want to call it, right? Now, this is an interesting thing the guides are saying, right? Because I was wondering recently why the Democrats are not we don't seem to be as susceptible, if you will, to Kool-Aid, to red pilling. We're just not, I'm not saying we aren't susceptible. I'm saying we're not as susceptible. And I think it's because maybe because we're all a bunch of nonconformists, at heart. The Democratic Party is sort of like, an amalgamation of a bunch of very different people who often infight and, split apart and argue with each other. Well, I think that thinking for yourself, the fact that we allow that in our party, just keeps us from falling for that kind of stuff. So I think it also keeps us from falling for dark energy as much. When you have a group of people, and the Republicans make no bones about it, right? If you're not a lockstep Republican, you're a rhino. And if you're a rhino, you're no good to us. They really want and foment this very much lockstep, everybody on the same page, right? We're all going to follow this leader, even if we don't like him, because he's the Republican. We're going to hold our nose and follow him anyway, right? The Democrats don't do that so much, right? That's it, and it doesn't work out for us so much because sometimes they can put a spoiler candidate, Ralph Nader or somebody like that in there, and all of a sudden we've lost the election because Democrats tend to be independent and nonconformist. But that very same thing keeps us from falling for some of these tricks, including dark energy. Hopefully that is helpful. Woodlawn, thank you for your question. Okay, we're going to go now to Laura Gibbs. All right. Your question is, will Jack Smith move to have Donald Trump detained pending trial for Jan 6 based on his dangerous threats of violence and etc.? That's such a good question because remember the guides told you maybe a month ago that as Donald Trump felt more and more attacked or cornered, that he would publicly say things that would be a bridge too far, So right after that video, literally 2 days later, Trump came out and publicly announced Barack Obama's address, right? That was step one in what we're going to be seeing. As the heat turns up, and I feel like Trump is going to get desperate and he's going to start saying things that could get him in trouble with his own party, could get him in trouble even with international leaders whom he's been friendly with, could for sure get him in trouble with Secret Service, could get him in trouble with the DOJ as far as showing or sharing top secret documents now, not like in the past. So yes, these are things, fomenting violence. Look, I wish I could tell you guys that he could get locked up for that, but it's not a law. Okay, I take that back. There's a guy who just got locked up because he threatened Swalwell and his family and his staff, and they locked that guy up because there's actually a law on the books against threatening, congressmen and senators. Okay, so that did work, but I don't know if there's laws on the books. And number one, and number two, you have the problem. It's really a problem. And that is that he's a past president and we don't know what to do with that. We don't know what to do with this. Book has never been written, right? On one hand, Garland and the DOJ, they're trying to soft shoe all of this so that they can kind of capture Trump and capture, meaning indict and convict these people without massive civil disobedience and unrest by these MAGAs who are armed to the teeth. They don't want to unleash these people on our American cities. We don't want that, right? So, and Biden really doesn't want that, right? So they're trying, and so far Biden has been really lucky about this. He's been really lucky about bringing the inflation level down. He's been really good at dancing between the raindrops. Well, that's kind of what he's trying to do here. He's trying to deal with Trump without triggering a mini civil war. That's what's on the table here, folks. That is the black and white, what's on the table here. Nobody wants this. We don't want these people to get their GUNSs out and go out and just pull an Ammon Bundy, pull some kind of crazy thing where they take over libraries or they take over police. Can you imagine? Just think about that, right? So Biden and Garland are trying to, we talked about this in the last video, they're trying to arrange the crackdown on these people in such a way that it's dispersed and it's all over before it happens, and the police and whoever it needs to be, not counting out the National Guard, can crack down on these uprisings. That, folks, is what they're trying to maneuver. It's not small. This is not like this is not an easy thing. This is a big deal they're dealing with. So yeah, they're going to try to muzzle Trump. But guess what? If you have on one hand Trump eliciting violence, but no violence is happening per se, no real uptick, no quantifiable uptick, the guides are saying. On the other hand, throw Trump in Gitmo because he's inciting violence. That's going to incite violence, and that's going to incite the kind of violence that's going to shut our economy down. It's going to shut major cities down, right? These are their choices, bad and worse. So this is why I feel like they're not going to discipline Trump. They're not going to gag him too much. They're going to let him have, it's all a calculated risk of bad options. We have bad options here. Which of these bad options are we going to choose? So, that's the thinking behind it. Now, having said all of that, this stuff is about to blow up on the Republican Party. It's about to blow up in a way that the guides are using the word spectacular. It's about to be a spectacular blow up. And if Trump does truth out or go on to whatever news channel will have him, or whatever channel, let's not even call it news, will have him and show some top secret document, that the energy suggests that he would show a top secret document that would put the United States of America in a very awkward intelligence situation with a foreign country that is an adversary. That's what the energy suggests. If he does that, they will cart him off. Now, when I say cart him off, one of the things they're telling me that's at their disposal is to make him disappear without making it look like he's disappeared. Okay, so one of the things they can do is they can put him under house arrest, and they can take away, and I've said this before, the guides have said this before, this is really a possibility that they've talked about before, because they're telling me so. I think it was maybe even 3 or 4 months ago. So here's the scenario. They put him in house arrest. Now, in this house arrest situation, he doesn't have access to his phone. What happens is, and everybody's probably going to know what the deal is, because the tenor of the truths is going to change. But then they're going to allow him, or they're going to make him, is more the gist of it. They're going to make him truth out to his fans, his people. I'm okay. I'm just getting some rest. I'm not feeling well. I won't be around very much. I'm I'm dealing with some things, but everything is okay, right? He's going to be made to send out a signal, to send out a message, stand down, without saying the words stand down. So they're not going to throw him in Gitmo, but they're going to basically gag him and control him. And believe me, they will do this because there is a line. It may not look like there's a line. Like you might be looking at everything that's going on with Alabama saying, screw you, Supreme Court, Texas, screw you. Everybody's saying, screw you, government. We're our own country now. We make our own rules. I know it looks like, literally the United States is going to hell in a handbasket. There is a line. Biden has drawn a line in the sand, and he's told the DOJ, here's the line. If anybody goes over this line, it's going to trigger this, then this, then this. He has contingencies. He's got plans. Do not worry. He's just balancing his bad options. That's all he's doing right now. And I know it looks like he's not doing anything, or the government isn't doing anything, and they're letting these states run crazy, but they really are trying to manage a really bad situation. Diffuse. They're trying to diffuse a really bad situation is what the guides would say. Yes. Okay. I think that's going to answer your question, Laura Gibbs. Thank you so much. Karen Holgerson says, what is going to happen with Abbott's refusal? Abbott is the Texas governor, refusal to comply with the DOJ's request and the subsequent DOJ suit regarding the Texas border atrocities. So if you're from another country or you're wondering what we're talking about, there's a river that runs between Mexico and Texas. It's an international border. It's called the Rio Grande. And the governor of Texas decided to put these floating barricades in the river, except for that they're not just floating barricades, they're razor wire. They're hidden razor wire in and around these orange floating barricades, and people have been cut up getting caught up in these razor wire barricades. Now, the problem here is this is inhumane, but the other problem is this is an international border, and the DOJ, the federal government, really controls the international border, not Texas, not the governor. And so the DOJ has sued Abbott to remove these barricades. I do see Abbott removing the barricades. Oh, wow. So I see, this is so wrong. I think that what happens is the federal government hires a contractor or sends the National Guard down there to remove the barricades. Now, let me step into Dark Brandon energy right now. And, you can only imagine how mad he is right now, because he is literally, it's just bad for his health. I wish he would, he's got a lot of energy right here. He's got to let that go somehow. Okay. So when I'm in his energy, there's like a lot of pent up anger energy. But so, Biden loves the military. And I think in one of his options that he's considering is sending the National Guard to Texas to take these things down. Now, one of the reasons why he's thinking about this is remember earlier in this video, I talked about how Texas sent the Rangers, right? And the federal government sent troops to tell the slaves in Galveston, hey, you're not really a slave, even though you've been a slave for an additional 3 years. You're free to go, right? Same energy. They're giving me chills. Same energy here. Biden likes the optics of sending the federal troops to Texas. It sends a message. We're a republic, which means states have rights. We're a democracy, which means that the state answers to the federal government in many situations. This is an international border. Don't try me, young man. Don't try me. My patience is thin. I'm going to send the federal, I'm going to send the National Guard down there to remove this if you don't remove it within 60 days, 30 days, whatever the timeline is. Unfortunately, when I switch over into Abbott, Governor Abbott's energy, he's like, do what you got to do. I don't care. I'm not moving them. Which, again, you saw that side, that's me offloading energy from Biden, and Biden's energy. I have to offload this energy that he's carrying. Let me stay with that for just a second. Biden he's going to remove those things by hook or by crook. I mean, he's got a lot of options. He might send, I don't know. I'm seeing a helicopter, and I'm seeing them hook a hook into those things, and the helicopter flying off with them, right? Literally could remove those in about a day, right? Boom. This is a non-issue, a non-story, step off. Melinda Salinas also had the exact same question, so I answered your question there. Janet Miku says, what do the guides see for the Wagner group going into Poland? I don't see the Wagner group going into Poland, you guys. Poland, Polish people in Poland are the literal badasses of that area. They wouldn't truck a Wagner, not one Wagner, much less a troop of Wagners. I don't see it happening. Poland is itching for a fight. They would love it if somebody accidentally tripped over their border and landed on their land. They would love that. They live for that, right? So they're not going to be too friendly to any kind of incursion across their border. I don't see Wagner doing that. I just don't. If they did, it would be war. NATO would be, whatever that is, Article 52, NATO would be involved, game over. And here's the thing, right? Russia knows better. They know that if NATO got involved, Russia would be history. And no one is going there. They've been very careful, right? They've been very careful about trying to tiptoe around NATO and NATO countries. So I don't really see that. Now, I do see them, unfortunately, going off into Africa, where they often spend a lot of their wrecking and havocing time in Central Africa. So I do see them going there. Okay, couple more questions. Dennis Sig, or Dennis EG, depending, or Denise G. I can do it. Look at me read. Wow. Denise G. All right, Denise, your question is, the latest is there may be a federal government shutdown. This is in the United States in October, because once again, the House has to approve next year's budget, and surprise, some Republicans want to further limit or cut the spending that was approved in the previous debt ceiling negotiation. Do the guides see us averting this shutdown before the September 30th deadline? Oh my God, maybe that's why the energy switched from October to September. In my last video, I saw, for months, I've been seeing October as being like, boom, like the big month where a lot of big things are happening, shock and awe. Well, when I did the video, this last video, that energy moved to September. And I thought, well, everything is getting faster, right? The court cases are getting faster. Everything is moving faster. It's like finally humans have decided, oh, snap, we're headed towards this cliff. We better act quickly, or something like that. And the energy is also acknowledging that and also working with it and moving things along faster. So I wonder if your question has to do with that in September. So the question is, do the guides see us averting a shutdown before the September 30th deadline? Again, I feel like it's going to be close. It might be the 15th. It might be the 20th. But I do see us averting that. I don't know how. That's only a couple of months away. That's a month and a half away. My gosh. I do see it happening. I do feel like there's another negotiation, right? There's another negotiation, but I do see it happening. Again, Biden has got cards in his pocket. I've said this, the guys have said this before, right? They've said he's got some kind of card, ace in his sleeve, an ace in his pocket. And they said this the last negotiation, right? The guides told you we were going to get it negotiated. They told you it was going to be at the 11th hour. It was, and it was. They also said that Biden would meet with McCarthy, and that would be the beginning of this negotiation passing. And it was. I'm telling you guys, Biden has got something on McCarthy. He's literally got an ace in his sleeve, and he just pulls it out and says, remember this, Kevy? Hey, Kevy, you remember this? What is this card? The King of Swords. The King of Swords, right? That's Biden for you. You remember this? And I'm telling you, it's big. It's a big deal. But there's definitely something that Biden, the King of Swords, has, that he's a card that he's playing with McCarthy. Okay, Ann LW says, will there be any consequences for Japan dumping the Fukushima radioactive water into the ocean other than the great harm to the ocean, wildlife, and ecosystem? Will Japan face any charges from international courts? Again, I'm about to tell you something you don't want to hear. I don't see it. I feel like countries feel like they did what they had to do, that they didn't have another option. Maybe you feel differently. Maybe some nuclear scientists can weigh in here and say, Susan, they could have done this or they could have done that. Or really what the guides are saying is there's things they could have done before this became a problem, right? There were notifications, there were issues before that led up, that if they were paying attention, they would have seen these problems and they could have prevented, I guess, preventable, right? That is true. But once the meltdown was in process, there was nothing, according to my guides, there was nothing that they could have done. They did the only thing they could do. I don't see any charges. I just don't see any charges. I'm sorry. I think it's horrible. I don't always agree with the guides. Okay, Joyce Gibson says, do the guides see the stock market behaving? How do they see the stock market behaving over the 6 months? Any big corrections, dips on the horizon? Actually, right now, the stock market energy feels bullish. It feels strong, but the problem that could happen with the stock market is what we talked about earlier, civil unrest. Civil unrest will make the stock market tank. If you have a bunch of indictments, it'll make the stock market tank simply because the stock market doesn't like uncertainty, and people tend to overreact. And they think, okay, you indicted, let's say allegedly for entertainment purposes only, MTG or Jordan or Gates or Giuliani or Lindsey Graham or Trump or whatever, you indicted some of these people. Trump has already been indicted and the stock market seems to have handled that quite well. But I think if you indict more than two, the guides are saying more than two sitting members of Congress at the same time, like within the same week, that's going to cause the stock market to tank. But overall, I see the stock market recovering because there's no reason for it to tank. Jobs are up. The CHIP Act is pumping out construction jobs. It's pumping out money. The federal government is pumping out money for capital improvements of the states, for infrastructure. Their money is flowing. The stock market is happy. So I think there could be some dips, but I think overall, I personally see the stock market, if you average out the dips, I still see the stock market doing pretty well, having a basic rise, not a decline. I see, even with the dips, I see overall, when you get the median, I think it's going to be up. Don't ask me why I'm telling you this, because the guides want me to tell you this. I do see the housing market continuing to drop. I see houses continuing to drop. The housing values could drop the words they're using is surreptitiously. Is that the word you want to use? I don't think that's the word they want to use. Anyway, what they're saying to me is quickly, sort of a real drop. And that, just heads up for that. If you're selling your house, I think it's the price pressure on the prices is going to be more as we go into the end of the year. So the prices of the houses are going to go down. If you're an investor, that's good for you. You're going to be able to start picking up investment houses again. If you're a renter, that could be good for you because the investors are going to be able to pick up houses at a better price, and they're going to turn those into rentals because the rental market is still, just up against the wall. There's not enough rentals. So that's kind of the outlook for the housing market for the rest of this year. Next year, I feel like some states, this could be precipitously, that's the word they wanted to use, is precipitously. And I got that word when I was thinking of California. So California could have some even steeper drops in prices. Some states will have a higher drops. Some states will be rather minimal. I do see in the next year that the price is going to sort of start to level out. It will find its bottom next year. The feds will start, the interest rates will bottom, will level out next year, and maybe even start climbing towards mid to next year. So they wanted me to tell you about houses. I don't know why. The last question I'm going to do today. Oh, I'll do this. And there is going to be a part 2. So look for that. 61 Hollywood wants to know, will the downfall of Trump unearth the dirty deeds of the Canadian conservatives? Wow, what a question. All right. Will the downfall of Trump unearth the dirty deeds of the Canadian conservatives? Wow. Okay. It's only peripherally Trump that does this. It's really actually the United States Congress people and their connection to dirty money, not even dark money, but dirty money from countries that they shouldn't have gotten. Those connections that are criminal will, they're saying to me, potentially lead to your politicians, and your politicians, some of those politicians say maybe as many as 3, but for sure 1, maybe as many as 3 will be caught up in that investigation. So yes, Trump is involved, but not directly. It's actually really our own Congress people and senators, through some way. It's not a direct link, but it's some causal, there's a link. Okay. It's another person and then another person and then your people, but it does link back to this people and it links over to overseas. Okay. With that, I'm going to end this video. Thank you so much. I'll be back with part 2. Until then, look, take really, really good care of yourself. And hey, you energy people, you Reiki people, energy healers, do me a favor, a personal favor, and send Biden some energy for his chest, because man, my chest is still hurting. That is not good. I mean, it doesn't feel like a heart attack, but it feels like that squeezing. I don't like that, right? Like, let's send Biden some love and some healing. Let's actually visualize. Let's have an intermediary, because we don't want to be involved in this, to be honest with you. So have an intermediary healing entity, an archangel or something, go, because Biden is Catholic. Have an archangel go to Biden and lift the worries off of him. right? Instead of healing, I really feel like we need this energy to come and remove the worries from him, to lighten him, right? To somehow give him more ease. He needs more ease. He's got a lot of worries. He's really concerned with things right now. I mean, I gotta say, I go into his energy, every couple of weeks, and this is different. We need to help this man. Okay. So that would be super awesome if you could do that. And whatever you're drawn to do to help him, let's do it. Let's all get together and help out our leader. God knows where we would be without him, right? Take really good care, everybody. We'll talk soon. For entertainment purposes only.